Hello everybody, today I'm reading Captain Underpants and the Tyrannical Retaliation of the Turbo Toilet 2000. Yeez, that's a long title. So anyways, you have to watch my other videos to understand this book, so yeah. Hi everybody, we're back, and as usual, we're in big trouble again. This comic will help you get up to speed with our story so far. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about Captain Underpants. One time there was once there were two super awesome kids named George and Harold. We rocked the house, son. Me too. But they had a really mean principal named Mr. Krupp. Blah bitty blah blah blah. Mr. Krupp tried to blackmail George and Harold. I got you now. Video evidence. So George and Harold hypnotized him. I don't think so. They made him think he was Captain Underpants. It was funny at first, but then he took things a little too far. Tra-la-la! Hey, come back! He got into all sorts of trouble. Then one day, he drank some alien superpower juice, and he got real superpowers, which got him into even more trouble. Hey look, that's Dr. Diaper and his robots. There's the talking toilets. Now here's Professor Poopy Pants, the Wicked Wedge Woman, and the Bionic Bugger Boy. Now whenever Mr. Krupp hears somebody snap their fingers, snap, he turns into Captain Underpants. Tra-la-la. And whenever somebody pours water on Captain Underpants' head, H2O, he turns back into mean old Mr. Krupp. Blah, blah, blah. One time the talking toilets attacked. Yum, yum, eat 'em up. Their leader was the Turbo Toilet 2000. George and Harold used a weird machine to make a good robot called the Robo-Plunger. Patsy 2000. The Robo-Plunger beat up the Turbo Toilet 2000 and flew him to Uranus. Welcome to Uranus. There they have stayed for many months. This other time, Wedgie Woman made two robots. One of them kicked a kickball into outer space. Could these two events be connected? Our heroes are about to find out, because at this very moment, they're traveling backwards in time to discover the terrible truth. Oh no, here we go again. Copyright Treehouse Comics. What's always confused me about these comics is that, how do they make it when they're on a cliffhanger? Like they're traveling back in time. Did it take that long to travel back in time? Kind of confusing. Anyways, chapter 1, George and Harold. This is George Beard and Harold Hutchins. George is the kid on the left with the tie and the flat out. Harold is the one on the right with the t-shirt and a bad haircut. Remember that now. If you're confused by what's going on here, don't worry. They're confused too. You see, George, Harold, and Captain Underpants had just undergone an epic adventure that started out in the dinosaur age and ended at their school 30 years in the future. Now, thanks to Melvin Sneedley, the Telltale genius, in his glow-in-the-dark time-traveling Robo-Squid suit, they were all hurtling back in time. Back a long, 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 long time ago to the dull, old-fashioned age known as the present. As of when I'm recording this, October 2025. This Captain Underpants series might end this year. It's gonna end in 2025, maybe. Oh, I almost forgot. Traveling with them were 3 purple and orange speckled eggs laid by their pet pterodactyl crackers, who, along with their other pet, Sulu the bionic hamster, had just saved the planet and created all life as we know it simultaneously. See, that wasn't confusing at all, was it? Was it? Melvin's glow-in-the-dark time-traveling robo-squid suit whizzed through time in a dazzling array of electrified eye candy as 30 years sped by in reverse. Not in a reverse. Then everything stopped suddenly. George and Harold looked around. "Hey," said Harold, "you're still here at school." "Correct," said Melvin, "only now it's 30 years and 1 day earlier." "Hey, I remember redrawing this page. I think I made it so that it was completely perfect." "Hey, look," said George, pointing at the school. "There's Tippy in his robo-pants." "Not again," Harold moaned. "Relax," said Melvin, as a flash of green light shot out of the library window. "You're looking at something that happened yesterday, remember?" "Oh, yeah," said Harold. "We were up there in the library. We just disappeared in the purple potty." "Right," said George, "and Tippy's just about to come after us. He should be leaving any second now." Suddenly a crackling blue light shot out of the robo-pants, and before you could say convoluted plotline, it disappeared into the noontime haze. "Okay," said Melvin, "here you are. Home again, jiggity jig. Take your precious eggs and go about your business." "Wait a second," said George. "Aren't the cops still after us?" "Yeah," said Harold. "Didn't they think we stole that money from the bank?" "Not anymore," said Melvin, proudly patting himself on the back with one of his mechanical tentacles. "Luckily, I had this glow-in-the-dark time-traveling robo-squid suit in my garage. I used it to go back in time and hack into the bank's computer." "What for?" asked Harold. "No big deal," said Melvin. "I just altered their super lines images a little bit. Just don't grow a mustache or a beard anytime soon, and you guys will be fine." "Wow," said Harold. "Melvin nearly rescued us. I can't believe it." Yeah, I don't get Melvin," said Drew suspiciously. "You've always hated us. How come you're being so nice to us all of a sudden?" "Oh, I have my reasons," said Melvin. "I have my reasons." And Melvin did indeed have reasons. A whole year's worth of reasons. But before I can tell you that story, I have to tell you this story. Chapter 2. Don't you hate it when a kickball hits Uranus? Somewhere in the deepest, darkest reaches of our solar system, a red rubber kickball was zooming through space. None of Earth's top scientists could explain where it had come from or why it was racing towards Uranus, but it has been on its present course for the past 5.5 books, and nothing could stop it. Hey, 5.5 books. This is just the start of the book, so you could say it's the end of book 10. So that would go to the end of book 5, and then a half, that would make 1/2 of into book 5. That actually makes sense. The kickball went through page 101 and 102. So yeah, I guess that makes sense. Oh yeah, and speaking of numbers, 6, 7, and then, wait. 6, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7. Okay, we didn't really need that. Anyways, nothing stopped it. Okay. The kickball sped closer and closer to a small cluster of proclaimed monstrosities that lay together in a heap on the surface of the icy, ridiculously named planet. Behind them, guarding them with a keen, observant eye, was a robotic sentinel known as the Incredible Roll Plunger. Faster and faster the kickball whizzed toward them until finally, kabloink! The force of the red rubber kickball knocked the head right off the Incredible Roll Plunger. The decapitated defender, wow, that's a weird word, jutted forward slightly as photoatomic transcongobulating ectophantrip-plutonic xanthatomistic. Next time I'm not even going to try to say that word. And juice drizzled out from its mangled neck wall and oozed slowly downward into the gaping mouth of the Turbo Toilet 2000. Yeesh, who created that word? This was unfortunate because, as any robotics engineer would tell you, it's really important to keep photoatomic transcongobulating. Okay, I'm not even going to try to say that word. Who created that word? Wait, ectophantrip-plutonic xanthatomistic. I could kind of say it. Ectophantrip-plutonic whatever. Juice as far away from evil robots as possible. You certainly don't want to get even a drop of it in their mouths, for it will only make them come to life and give them an unquenchable appetite for destruction, which sadly is exactly what happened that bleak night on the terrible gassy surface of Uranus. The Turbo Toilet's 2000's bulbous, bloodshot eyes smacked open and wobbled around wildly. His massive left arm creaked up and rubbed his painful, throbbing side of his proclean. Where the heck am I? He said, looking around at his fallen allies. Clumsily, he squeaked to his feet, dusted himself off, and beheld the headless mess that was once the Incredible Roll Plunger. Then it all came back to him. The battle, the defeat, the humiliation. It wasn't long before the Turbo Toilet 2000 had pieced together every single event that had brought him and his army of talking toilets to this frozen, frustrating fate. I must retaliate, he said, clenching his razor-sharp, proclean teeth together tightly. I must avenge my fallen allies. Luckily for him, he was a robot, which meant that he knew a thing or two about mechanical engineering. It didn't take long for him to disassemble the roll plunger, rearrange the pieces, and create a flying rocket scooter from the recycled parts of his archenemy. The only wait. Why is it broken? Oh. The only thing left to do was to travel the long journey from Uranus to Earth. It was a voyage that would take him nearly 3 whole pages to complete. And when he arrived, he would wage a war against the good people of Earth. A war that would threaten the very foundation of our planet. But before I can tell you that story, I have to tell you this story. Hey, did we already guess that? These. Chapter 3. Melvin's Moment of Mirth. Remember back in Chapter 1 where we found out that Melvin had a whole year's worth of reasons why he needed to bring Harold and Captain Underpants back to the present? Well, in case you were wondering what happened during that year, here's what happened during that year. Immediately after our heroes disappeared on their prehistoric journey, the cops started looking for George, Harold, and Mr. Krupp. Wanted posters appeared in post offices across America. But since George and Harold and Mr. Krupp had traveled back in time to the Cretaceous period, they were nowhere to be found. That's their evil twins, not them. Yep, 3 pages. 1, 2, and 3. 1, actually, 0, 1, 2, 3. That makes sense. Everyone assumed that George, Harold, and Mr. Krupp had robbed a bank and were hiding out in Canada or Mexico somewhere, and it wasn't too long before the cops gave up and stopped looking for them. This was sad news for most of the residents of Piqua, Ohio, but not for Melvin Sneedley. Melvin was finally happy for the first time in years. No George and Harold meant no pranks, no comments, and best of all, no interruptions. Melvin could finally go about conducting his scientific experiments, creating wild new inventions, and indulging his beautiful mind in peace. But all that happiness only lasted for about 2 weeks because, as we mentioned earlier, you know who showed up. Chapter 4, He Who Must Not Be Flushed. The Turbo Toilet 2000 entered Earth's atmosphere in a blazing fireball from the sky. His rocket scooter roared over the rooftops of the small Ohio town as the Proclean predator bellowed out an ear-drumming, crushing taunt. Here's Johnny! Then came the destruction. Buildings collapsed. City buses were thrown through skyscraper windows. Fires raged out of control. The chaos and devastation crippled the town. Some sent residents running for their lives and annoyed the heck out of one little boy. Melvin Sneedley had been trying to get some work done in his bedroom laboratory when the attack began. All he needed was 1 or 2 more hours of uninterrupted silence to complete his experiment but the terrible ruckus outside was really getting on his nerves. Melvin marched over to his bedroom window, poked his head out, and shouted, "Hey, I'm trying to work, you idiot! Be quiet!" As you can probably imagine, the turbo toilet didn't take too kindly to being dressed down in such a manner. He swiveled his massive bowl around quickly and glared at Melvin with raging, hard-boiled eyes. "Uh-oh," Melvin gulped. Suddenly, the Turbo Toilet 2000 leaped at Melvin. The tiny telltale screamed as the malevolent miscreant chased him down the street, across the city, and into the empty, darkened hallways of Jerome Hartwood's elementary school. Melvin ran upstairs and hid under Mr. Krupp's desk while the Turbo Toilet 2000 searched through the classrooms for him. Melvin was in deep trouble. Finally, he actually needed Captain Underpants' help, but the waistband warrior was nowhere to be found. "Rats," said Melvin. "If only I could—" Ouch! Melvin's knee was pressing down into something sharp. Carefully, Melvin reached down and pulled the pointy little object out of his knee. It was a toenail. Not just any toenail either. It was one of Mr. Krupp's thick, greasy, yellow toenails that he had clipped off the day before he had been whisked away on his journey back through time. "Ew, what a slob," said Melvin as he flicked the toenail away. Then Melvin thought of something. He knew that Mr. Krupp was also Captain Underpants. That meant that Mr. Krupp's DNA must have some kind of superpower element in its makeup. If Melvin could find a way to extract the super element from Mr. Krupp's DNA, then Melvin could theoretically transfer those superpowers to himself. "Where's that toenail?" cried Melvin. Chapter 5, Big Melvin Returns. Big Melvin from Book 7? Oh, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. The Turbo Toilet 2000 noisily smashed his way from classroom to classroom, getting closer to Mr. Krupp's office with each thundering foot stomp. Melvin desperately searched the mangy orange carpet for Mr. Krupp's stinky toenail, digging his fingers deep into the matted shag as the sounds of carnage got louder and louder. "Where's that toenail?" Melvin screamed. Finally, Mr. Krupp's office door burst open. "Aha!" shouted the Turbo Toilet 2000. "I've got you now, you annoying little brat." He reached down, grabbed Melvin by the foot, and pulled him toward his chomping, razor-sharp teeth. Hey, wait. "I've got you now, you annoying little brat." He reached down, grabbed Melvin by the foot, and pulled him toward his chomping, razor-sharp teeth. "No!" screamed Melvin. "I'm too gifted to die. I'm too talented. I'm too—" Ouch! Once again, Mr. Krupp's stinky toenail had lodged its way into Melvin's pasty, freckled skin. But this time, Melvin couldn't have been happier about it. Quickly, he reached back, untied his shoe, and slipped his foot out. Then Melvin jumped out of Mr. Krupp's window and slid down the flagpole with the Turbo Toilet 2000 in hot pursuit. Unfortunately, Melvin's little scientist wristwatch had a built-in DNA extractor. Melvin inserted the filthy toenail into his watch and programmed a complete extraction procedure while the Turbo Tyler 2000 chased him back through town. As Melvin ran screaming, his watch quickly pulverized and sonicated the toenail cells, removed the membrane lipids, proteins, and RNA, and purified and isolated a single strand of Mr. Crip's DNA. Oh, that's a long sentence. Geez, who tried to make that sentence? Wait, I just noticed this. What the heck? Whatever. When Melvin reached his bedroom laboratory, he quickly fed the results into his mech computer, which identified the metallo-organic superpowered substance and began replicating it in a saline gel solution. The gel percolated slowly as it oozed into a glass beaker. Hurry up, you dumb semi-conservative genome replication device, shouted Melvin as the Turbo Tyler 2000 crashed through his bedroom wall. Gotcha, roared the loathsome laboratory. He scooped Melvin up into his gigantic fist as his wet, leathery tongue slid back and forth against his pointed proclean premolars. With one final desperate thrust, Melvin grabbed the beaker and chugged down its green glowing contents. The Turbo Tyler 2000 popped Melvin into his mouth like a cocktail weenie and started to chew. His ferocious face chomped feverishly, but Melvin was tough and hard and surprisingly grisly. And then the Turbo Tyler 2000 struggled to swallow, a task that he found nearly impossible. With his gigantic metal fingers, he reached into his bowl and pulled out a mucus-covered little boy who surprisingly didn't have a scratch on him. The Turbo Tyler 2000 gawked at Melvin in dumbfounded astonishment. "You are so immature," said Melvin. Chapter 6. Sanitize for your protection. Hey, that's the name of Timmy Failure 4. Anyways, unfortunately, the epic fight that followed was way too violent and disturbing to appear in a children's book. The images and descriptions would just be too terrifying. You'd have nightmares for weeks, trust me. So I have invited a guest illustrator, Timmy Swanson, age 4, to draw the action in a style that won't depict too much graphic detail. I've also asked his Nana, Gertrude, age 71, to describe the scene in her own gentle vocabulary. Take it away, Timmy and Nana, today's special guest. Thank you, dear. Well, let's see. What's happening here? Oh my. That's horrible. Looks like a little boy is... Oh dear, now what's he doing? Oh dear me, this certainly is not appropriate at all. And now there's a robot shaped like a... Well, I'd rather not say. He's doing such dreadful things, though. And oh my, say, what kind of a buck is this? Oh, for heaven's sake, this is ridiculous. I've never been so offended at all my... I've seen just about enough. Oh dear. Stop, Timmy, stop drawing. Stop drawing this into... No, Timmy, no. Chapter 7. The incredibly graphic was chapter part 1 in Flip-O-Rama, featuring Timmy and Nana and Timmy. I've had enough of this insanity. Shame on you. Shame on you all. It's okay, Nana. Just a few more flip pages and it'll all be over. Oh dear. Oh my. Oh, for goodness' sake. Bro just got, he's like, what? And then this, and this, like, this. Bro just got crushed by a car. Bro. Chapter 8. Everybody loves Melvin. When it was all over, the Turbo Toilet 2000 was dead, and Melvin Sneedly was a hero. The mayor had a big parade in honor of Melvin. Weird Al Yankovic wrote a song about him. Even the vice president sent a letter of congratulations. Melvin Sneedly was known throughout the world as the little superpowered tattletale who saved the world. Finally, said Melvin, I'm getting the respect I deserve. Hooray for Melvin! We love Melvin! Melvin forever! Tattletale room. We're so immature. Dear Melvin, dude, you totally rock. OMG, your pal. It's what looks like Joe Biden. Vice President of the United States. Chapter 9. With great power comes a great big pain in the hiney. What the heck? Bro. With great power comes a great big pain. Melvin enjoyed being a superhero at first. It was fun stopping runaway trains, rescuing lost children, and saving people from burning buildings. Whenever anybody needed help, all they had to do was lift their heads to the sky and cry out, "Yo, Big Melvin!" And Big Melvin would drop whatever he was doing and zip into the scene and save the day. It was all good at first until it started to get bad. You see, after a while, people started to abuse the system. They started crying out, "Yo, Big Melvin!" all the time, and it got old pretty quickly. Melvin would drop everything, throw on his cape, fly out the window, zip through the city, and arrive at the scene, only to find out that it wasn't an emergency at all. Usually, it was just someone who had misplaced her cell phone, or a kid who needed help with a video game cheat code, or some guy who had accidentally dropped his wallet in the toilet. What the heck? Bro just dropped his wallet in the toilet. Hell nah, brother. Bro, what are you doing with your wallet in the bathroom? Gee, this guy's crazy. It was a complete waste of Melvin's time, and the interruptions were beginning to drive him crazy. But the final straw came one evening when, as Melvin was doing a synchrotron radiation experiment with his homemade oscillating field particle accelerator. 11 months of research were finally about to pay off. The klystrons and electromagnets began to accelerate the hadrons faster and faster through Melvin's homemade copper cyclone tubing. Soon, Melvin would be the first person on Earth to definitely prove the Higgs boson's existence and solve the mystery of everything. Wait, didn't George Harold and Captain Underpants already figure that out? Six, 7. Then, with his supersonic eardrums, Melvin heard a cry for help across the city. Quickly, Melvin shut down his experiment, which caused the particle accelerator to overheat. This resulting explosion blew a hole in his bedroom floor 40 feet deep. But Melvin didn't care. Somewhere in the city, a citizen needed help. So he grabbed his smoldering cape from the pile of ashes that used to be his bedroom closet and flew to the scene of the emergency. Because when he arrived, he found a middle-aged woman frantically out her apartment window, screaming frantically out her apartment window. Big Melvin, help! It's an emergency. What's wrong? Melvin asked desperately. Do these pants make me look fat? Bro, that's not an emergency at all. Chapter 10. It's a mad Melvin. Melvin was angry. Very, very angry. Ever since he became a superhero, he'd had no time off. No time to do his experiments. He'd had no time off, no sleep, no privacy, no time for anything. At that moment, Melvin made a decision. He decided, for his own sanity, to quit the superhero business once and for all. But getting out was going to be a lot harder than it was getting in. He needed to find a superhero to replace him. So he made up his mind to locate Captain Underpants, bring him back to Piqua, and let him deal with all the hassles of superhero-dom. Finding Captain Underpants, as it turns out, wasn't as hard as Melvin had expected. Melvin knew that George and Harold were usually with Captain Underpants, and so the bionic hamster was usually with George and Harold. So, Melvin concluded, if I find Sulu, I should find Captain Underpants. Since Melvin had installed a GPS on Sulu's robotic endoskeleton, all Melvin had to do was run a simple scan on his computer for the GPS. At first, the scan found nothing. So, Melvin broadened his search to include all locations and all times. Finally, Melvin's search paid off. He found Sulu's last satellite reported location down by the schoolyard, 29 years in the future. That wasn't too hard, Melvin sneered, but bringing them all back to the present will be a little more complicated. Geez, this timeline is confusing. 29 years in the future when they brought them 30 years back in the future. And then there's that one day, but then apparently here it's 1 year, and then apparently in the original version of this book, yes, I read it. It had 40 years. This timeline is getting frustrating. Chapter 11, Dark Foreshadows. Melvin went to his garage and climbed into his glow-in-the-dark, time-traveling robo-squid suit. the suit powered up and started slinking and slithering toward the schoolyard as Melvin began the long journey to bring George, Harold, and Captain Underpants back home where they belonged. After solving some Silver Linings photo issues at the bank, Melvin zapped himself to the future, fetched everyone, and brought them all back 1 year earlier to the exact time and place where they had departed on their journey in our last book. But still, it is kind of confusing. Even if they say 1 year earlier, it's just kind of confusing, okay? Sheesh. George, Harold, and Captain Underpants had been through a lot in the past few days, but now it was as if they had never left at all. Everything was just as it had been. Like, no Captain Underpants, not any of that stuff. Okay, that's kind of weird. Okay. The Turbo Trailer 2000 wouldn't arrive on Earth for another 2 weeks, so Melvin's future as a superhero would never become reality. And nobody was happier about that than Melvin himself. I don't have to be a superhero anymore, cried Melvin happily. I can finally follow my destiny. Peace and quiet at last. But you still haven't told us why you brought us back, said George. Yeah, said Harold, what gives? Oh, you'll find out, said Melvin with a foreboding chuckle. In 2 weeks, you'll find out. Melvin unleashed a horrible, villainous laugh as his glow-in-the-dark robo-squid suit began to shake and buzz. Soon he and his tentacled time machine disappeared into a ball of electric light. Chapter 12. Heading home. George and Harold had no choice but to take Mr. Krupp home. They brought him to his front door, got the key out from behind the bushes, and let him inside. Go over to the kitchen and splash some water on your face, said George. Aye, aye, sir, said Captain Underpants. He did as he was told, and in no time at all, he was back to his grumpy old self. Do not smell flowers. Private property. No salesman. Keep off the grass. I've seen his home before. I wonder what's going to happen in 2 weeks, said Harold as he and George walked home. I'm sure it's no big deal, said George. If Melvin can handle it, we can handle it. Soon, George and Harold were back in their tree house. Carefully, they placed crackers, eggs on some soft pillows under a few desk lamps. There, said George, that should keep them warm and cozy. George and Harold were dead tired. They hadn't slept in over 30 hours, and they had been running for their lives most of that time. I need a serious nap, said Harold as he settled into his beanbag chair. Me too, said George as he collapsed into his own beanbag chair. Saving the world is exhausting. I'm still worried about that whole 2 weeks thing. said Harold. That sounds really bad. Relax, said George. There's nothing we can do about it now anyways. Let's try to stay out of trouble for the next 2 weeks. Said Harold. If the world is going to end, I don't want to be stuck in detention the whole time. Don't worry so much, said George. Besides, how much trouble could we get in 2 weeks anyways? Chapter 13, 11 minutes later. George! Harold! Get down here right now! George and Harold opened their eyes. Wearily, they stumbled to the treehouse door and looked down. George's mom and dad and Harold's mom were all standing down in the yard looking very angry. The school's called, George's dad said. They told us that you kids weren't in class today. Uh-oh, said George. We're dead, said Harold. Would you mind explaining what you've been doing all day? Asked Harold's mom angrily. George and Harold could hide the truth no longer. They decided to confess everything. We couldn't go to school today, said George. We had to save the earth from an evil, crazy guy who was riding around in a giant pair of robotic pants. Yeah, said Harold. We spent the last day traveling through time, running from dinosaurs, and teaching cavemen how to defend themselves. Very funny, shouted George's dad. If you kids think you can skip school and goof around all day, you're in for a big surprise. George and Harold had never seen their parents so angry. The two boys spent the next 5 hours mowing lawns, weeding gardens, vacuuming houses, washing cars, dusting furniture, cleaning out garages, whitewashing fences, doing dishes, folding laundry, and taking out garbage. It was exhausting work, but it was nothing compared to what was to come next. Chapter 14. What was to come next? George and Harold had never been so tired in all their lives. At 9:30 p.m., they grunted good night to each other and limped into their houses like zombies. Would you like a snack, Peter? Said Harold's mother. No, thanks, he mumbled. He was too tired for a snack, too tired to take a bath, too tired to put his pajamas on or take his shoes off. He didn't even have the energy to turn out his bedroom light. He just collapsed on top of his bed and fell asleep instantly. 22 seconds later, the telephone rang. It was George. Harold's mother brought the phone into his room and held it up to his ear. Harold was too tired to even say hello. He just mumbled, oof. I just remembered something, said George, panicking. Tomorrow is test day. Harold's bloodshot eyes popped open and he sat upright straight. Oh no, Harold cried. I forgot all about that. Me too, said George. We're having major tests in all of our classes tomorrow. We're gonna have to stay up all night long and study. Chapter 15. To thine own self be trod. When the sun rose the next day, George and Harold were still going through their spelling checklist. Harold was almost done studying. Harold still had 44 pages of his natural history textbook. Breakfast is ready, shouted George's dad from downstairs. George stumbled down exhaustedly and tried to smush some waffles into his mouth. He missed. This studying and that's. Meanwhile, Harold was sitting at his breakfast table in a burned-out stupor, buttering his cereal and pouring milk on his toast. Did you get any sleep at all last night? Asked Harold's mom. Okay, Harold answered. Harold's answer didn't make any sense, but it was the best he could do under the circumstances. High fructose. Now with marshmallow cheese. Oh my god, these guys are cringe. Not gonna lie. And before long, George and Harold were ready for school. They met up as they did every school day in George's front yard. Are you ready for all of our big tests today? Asked George droopily. Pretty good, said Harold. He was so tired he couldn't even answer a simple question from his best friend correctly. How is he going to manage a day's worth of tests? Let's get this over with, George moaned. Wait, said Harold. I want to check on Cracker's eggs before we go to school. Harold wobbled to George's backyard and hoisted himself up the ladder to the treehouse. Hurry up, said George. Harold did not answer. Hey, shouted George. We're gonna be late. Harold did not come down. George climbed up the steps and peeked inside the treehouse. It was just as he expected. Harold had fallen asleep at their desk. Hey, Harold, said George, shaking his friend's shoulder. Wake up, man. We're gonna be late for our test. Just 5 minutes, moaned Harold. I just need to sleep for 5 minutes. Please. Well, okay, said George, but not a minute longer. George took his backpack off and set it against the treehouse door. Then he plopped down in his beanbag chair and looked at his pocket watch. It was 7:53 a.m. The second hand was ticking by awfully slowly. I'm just going to close my eyes for a second, said George. Just for a few seconds. That afternoon, George yawned and stretched as he rolled over in his beanbag chair. He glanced at his pocket watch again. 4:41 p.m. George closed his eyes and went back to sleep. Suddenly, his eyes shot open. Oh, no! George screamed. Harold awoke with a jump. We fell asleep, George cried. We slept through school. We slept through our tests. We slept through everything. Oh, no, Harold went. We're dead, man. Game over. George and Harold peeked out the treehouse. Harold's mom was out in her garden. She was whistling a cheerful tune. That's strange, said Harold. Why didn't the school call her and tell her we are absent? I have no idea, said George. Harold climbed down from the treehouse and walked over to the garden. How's school today? Asked Harold's mom. Oh, the same as always, I guess, said Harold. He really was guessing. George's mom heard them talk and came over. You didn't miss school today, did you? Asked George's mom. Nope, said George. Technically, George was telling the truth. He hadn't really missed school at all. Chapter 6, Super Secret Test Day. The next day, when George and Harold arrived at school, Mr. Krupp was overjoyed to see them. He met them at the front door, shook their hands enthusiastically, and gave them a big sweaty hug. This can't be good, George said. You're wrong, said Mr. Krupp. It's the best day ever. It's the day I've been waiting for since I met you two horrible people. Let's all go to my office, shall we? I've got refreshments. As they walked down the long hallway toward Mr. Krupp's office, several teachers patted Mr. Krupp on the back and congratulated him. The entire school staff seemed elated. "We're doomed," said Harold. When they finally got to Mr. Krupp's office, he plopped down into his chair and spun around a few times, giggling with glee. After a few minutes, George started to become impatient. "I thought you said there were going to be refreshments," Miss George said. "Not for you," shouted Mr. Krupp angrily as he slammed a fist on his desk. He opened his drawer, pulled out a warm diet soda, and popped it open. Then he leaned back into his chair and sipped loudly as he chuckled to himself. "I just want to soak this in," he said with delight as fizzy brown phosphoric acid dribbled down his chins. You boys have really messed up this time," Mr. Krupp laughed. "You skipped school on super secret test day." "Super secret test day?" said Harold. "What does that mean? I thought you'd never asked," Mr. Krupp said gleefully. "You see, I've been looking for a way to separate you two kids for years now. I never figured out how to do it until yesterday. It came to me in a flash of inspiration. Super secret test day." "What's so secret about it?" asked George. "You should be asking what's so super about it," Mr. Krupp said Mr. Krupp joyfully, "because it might just be the crowning achievement of my entire career." Miss George and Harold looked at each other nervously. Suddenly, the door opened and the school's math teacher, Miss Calculator, entered the room. She sneered down at George and Harold and poked her tongue out at them as she walked by. "Here are the figures you asked for," she said, handing Mr. Krupp a manila envelope. "Thanks, Anita," Mr. Krupp said. He smelled the envelope like he was admiring the aroma of a gourmet meal. It's a real shame you boys missed school yesterday," Mr. Krupp said. "Your teachers hated to do it, but they have to give you both zeros on all of your tests." "But we study really hard. Can't we take makeup tests?" said Harold. No, Mr. Krupp said, grinning evilly from ear to ear. "There will be no makeup test." "Don't worry, Harold," said George. "We'll do really good on our final exams this year. We can bring our grades back up. Final exams have been canceled for this year," said Mr. Krupp cheerfully. "Isn't that wonderful news? You and all your classmates will get 7 more weeks of school with no homework, no quizzes, and no study. Your grades for the whole school year have already been calculated." "Oh no! Oh no," said George. We're going to flunk the 4th grade? "Actually, it's worse than that," said Mr. Krupp, his teeth glistening up in a grin so wide it seemed to stretch beyond the boundaries of his face. "Normally you wouldn't get this information until summer vacation, but I thought I'd be nice and show you your grades early. Isn't that fun?" He opened the manila envelope, slid 2 report cards toward George and Harold. Quickly, the boys opened them up and scanned through them. George's final grade for the year was 62.7%. A terrible grade, to be sure, but still a passing grade. George would move on to 5th grade next year. Harold, whose grades were not quite as good as George's, wasn't so lucky. Harold's final grade was 59.7%. Harold had failed. Report card, Beater G, grade 4. Report card, Hutchins H, grade 4. Hey, that's weird. I'm in 4th grade. Even though I started doing Captain Underpants video at the end of the third grade school year. Oh no! Harold moaned as his eyes began to fill with tears. I'm going to flunk the 4th grade. Yeah, ain't that too bad, said Mr. Krupp with a delighted twinkle in his eyes. He looked up at Miss Calculator, and they both burst into fits of laughter. There's nothing you can do about it either, Miss Calculator sneered. You two brats will be in different grades next year. You'll never see each other in school anymore. You'll have different teachers, and different classes, and different friends. Chapter 17, The Idea. I can't believe they're going to separate us, said Harold as the two boys walked home from school that afternoon. George said nothing. He was thinking. He knew there was a way to solve this problem. I can't believe I have to spend an extra year at school, too. Harold moaned, trying not to cry. The worst part is that I actually studied. I know this stuff. I could have probably gotten straight B's if I had taken those tests yesterday. That's it, cried George confidently. We can fix this. But how? Said Harold. They won't let us take makeup tests. Who says we have to take makeup tests? George replied. Let's take the real test. What do you mean? Harold looked suspicious. What do you mean? Melvin said he kept his time-traveling squid thingy in his garage, right? Said Harold. Let's borrow it and go back in time until yesterday morning. We can take those tests like we were supposed to. Problem solved. No way, Harold protested. Whenever we travel around in time, bad stuff happens. What could be worse than being in different grades next year, George countered. Do you really want to spend an extra year at that school? Harold didn't have an argument for that. Besides, we're just going back in time one day. How could anything bad happen in one day? I guess you're right, said Harold. George and Harold turned around and headed over to Melvin's house. Luckily, his garage door was open. Cautiously, the two boys sneaked inside and looked around. And there, standing in the corner beside a box of Lane-Storm 7-inch gangly wrenches, was a glow-in-the-dark time-traveling railroad scooter. We can't be doing this, Harold whispered. We're trespassing and stealing. Hey, Melvin started this whole mess, and George reminded Harold. We're just fixing it. Besides, we're not stealing. We're just borrowing. Against this better judgment, Harold helped hoist George up into the cockpit. Suddenly, the row of skids powered up and began to glow. A few moments later, the controls were all set. Okay, said George, let's go back in time and take those dumb tests. He picked Harold up with one of his glowing tentacles and took a few steps forward and pressed the start button. The glow-in-the-dark time-traveling robo-squid suit began shaking and sputtering as it zipped backward in time 32 hours. A blinding ball of light flashed suddenly, and George and Harold arrived bright and early yesterday morning, just in time for school. As George and Harold helped George climb out of the cockpit, he noticed that there are now two glow-in-the-dark time-traveling robo-squid suits. Hey, said Harold, how come there are two glow-in-the-dark time-traveling robo-squid suits? Said George. I guess that one in the corner is the one from yesterday. When we went back in time, we created a duplicate of them. Oh yeah, said Harold. No one should thank us. Yeah, said George. That was very thoughtful of us. George and Harold ran back through town as fast as they could. Soon they were scrambling the steps of Jerome Hortwood's elementary school. This feels weird, said George. I've never been so happy to go to school before, or to take tests, said Harold. Indeed, it was a happy school day for George and Harold. They took all of their tests and did pretty well on most of them, and never had to deal with anything super or secret again. And at least not until that afternoon. In Chapter 18, Our Doppelgang. That afternoon, when George and Harold got home, they climbed up to their treehouse to check on Cracker's egg. George tried to push the door open, but there was something in the way. Hey, there's a backpack blocking the door, said George. He reached in and pulled it toward him. This looked like my backpack. What's going on up there? Asked Harold as George rummaged through the backpack. My papers, my books, my lunch from yesterday. This is my backpack. It can't be, said Harold. You're wearing your backpack. George pushed the treehouse door open and looked inside. Oh no, said George. Harold climbed up next to George and looked inside the treehouse. There, sleeping at the table, was Harold himself, and next to him, sprawled out and snoring on his beanbag chair, was George. I told you something bad would happen. Shh, said George. Don't wake us up. I don't understand, Harold whispered. How come we're here? Well, it kind of makes sense, said George. We just went back in time to yesterday, right? Right. Well, where were we yesterday? Asked George. We were right up here in the treehouse sleeping in... Oh, I get it, said Harold. This is up from yesterday. Yeah, said George. Remember how we accidentally created an extra robo squid suit? Said Harold. Well, I guess we accidentally created an extra George and Harold too. Perfect, said George sarcastically. Said Harold sarcastically. Chapter 19, The Pack. Well, yesterday George and Harold slept, and George and Harold tried to figure out what to do next. How are we going to explain this to our parents? Asked Harold. How are we going to explain this to ourselves? George. Yesterday, George yawned and stretched as he rolled over in his beanbag chair. He glanced at his pocket watch, then closed his eyes to go back to sleep. Suddenly, his eyes shot open. Oh no! Yesterday, George screamed. Harold woke with a jump. We fell asleep! Yesterday, George cried. We slept through school. We slept through our tests. We slept through... Hey, where are you guys? Yesterday, Harold rubbed his eyes and looked at his... I must be dreaming, he said. Either that or I'm seeing double. Well, said George, it's a long story. He and Harold told their yesterday selves what had happened and had quickly caught them up on caught them both up on the events of the past 3.5 chapters. Now what are we supposed to do? Said Yesterday George. We can't tell our parents, said Harold. But where are we all going to sleep? Asked Yesterday Harold. How are we going to get enough food? Said Yesterday. And clean clothes. Everyone was beginning to panic, except for George, who had been deep in thought for a while. George didn't seem worried at all. In fact, a devilish grin was beginning to spread across his face. You know, said George, maybe you're looking at this wrong way. Maybe this is a good thing. A good thing? Cried Yesterday Harold restlessly. Yes, said George. We've always said there's never enough time to do what we want to do, so let's take shifts. Me and Harold will start going to school and doing our homework on even number days, and you guys will go to school and do homework on odd number days. How about what will we do while you guys are at school? Asked Yesterday George. Whatever you want, said George. Hang out in the treehouse, play video games, make comics, watch monster movies. Doesn't matter. You guys get to relax and take the day off every other day. I get it, said Yesterday George, smiling devilishly. Then you guys can take the day off while we're at school and stuff. Yeah, said George. Just think of the possibilities. I don't know, said Harold and Yesterday Harold at the same time. Don't worry, it'll be great. We'll have twice as much fun as normal and only have to work. Yeah, said Yesterday George. What possibly go wrong? Okay, this video is starting to get wrong, so I'm just gonna say what happens. So they're just doing whatever, and then when they wake up the next day, they kind of need to and then they notice they're running low on food, so they make a comic and they're going to sell it on the playground. But then they find out, and the teachers find out that there's 2 Georges and 2 Harolds. And soon everybody starts to go crazy. And now it's just this. Where the heck this is? And he's like, what the heck? And then this happens. And then this happens. And then they're like, hey, what's going to happen in 2 weeks? Which is now. And then, here's Johnny! And then they're like, hey, where's Mr. Crump? And then they're like, no. And then he's like, rah, rah, rah. And they're like, okay, we need to do this. And then, this happens. And this happens. And then, this happens. And then this happens. And then this happens, this happens, this happens, and then this happens. And then this happens, 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 and this happens, and this happens, and this happens, and this happens. They get, and this happens, and this happens, and this happens, and this happens. And this happens, and this happens, and this happens, and this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then, yeah, that's the end of the book. I know that was kind of short, but the video was getting long, so. Okay, bye everyone.